Good afternoon. My name is Mohammed Hashim, and I'm a senior organizer for the Toronto and York Region Labour Council. Welcome to Voices from the Frontline. The COVID-19 crisis is not being experienced the same way by everyone. Many of us are either working from home, many have lost their jobs, but there are also many people out there today who are risking their lives to make sure our society functions. This series was created to share their voices. Today's episode is about a number of people who are many times invisible to society, but now they're deemed essential. I use the term invisible because I've been talking to people within the services sector, and many of them feel invisible, unheard, and sometimes taken for granted. I mean, let's be honest. How often have you looked at somebody working at a grocery store and they're shelving products, and while passing them, you said, thank you. It hardly ever happens. But now people are doing that. Or the person who delivers your food. When you're on your app and you're ordering food online, do you ever think about the person when you're trying to pick whether you're doing a 5%, 10%, or 15% tip? Not likely. And the person behind many of the things that you're getting online, the warehouse workers who are there picking products, putting into packages, their lives are never ever of consideration. So today, that's what we're bringing to you. Because what's happening today is that all of them have now been deemed essential. And they're serving an incredibly important function in society. They're making sure that your food is at your table, that the grocery stores have enough food for you to buy and take home, and for you to buy whatever you're purchasing from different warehouses and then being delivered to you. Like, the supply chain is incredibly important. It's a fragile environment, and society is making a lot of decisions right now to make sure that supply chain is going. And when I say that the supply chain is so important, it's important because people need to be taken care of, and that's what governments are prioritizing. People want to make sure that the supply chain is not interrupted, but there's people within the supply chain who really matter as well. And today's episode will look at three people. The first person we're going to have is Josie Barberi. She's a grocery store worker, and she's also a shop steward for the United Food and Commercial Workers Local 1006A. Then we'll talk to Gagandeep Kaur, who's one of the organizers, who's a postal worker, but also one of the organizers for the Warehouse Workers Center in Brampton. And finally, we'll speak to Ivan Ostos, a food delivery by courier, and one of the main organizers of the Foodsters United campaign. And after we talk to these courageous workers, we're going to talk to Glacier Samuel, a staff rep for UFCW 1006A, and also the recorder there, the newly elected Canadian Union of Postal Workers Toronto President Qaiser Maroof, and Liisa Schofield, an organizer for CUPW National, working on the gig economy workers. So today we're going to take a look at what the supply chain looks like. And the first person we're going to join is Josie Barberi. And let me see if I can get her on board here. Skylar, can we get Josie here? Hi, Josie.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm okay.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. When the pandemic just started, I remember walking into two grocery stores. And one of them, I was asked to sanitize my hands when I walked in. And in the other, they didn't. So I went up to a clerk and I said, how come I'm not being asked for for my hands to be sanitized here, while in the other place I was? But then I started thinking about the people that work there. I could be an exposure to people who are working there day in and day out. Tell me about what it looks like working in grocery stores right
now. So right at the beginning, we had to fight for PPE to be given to us, and we didn't have sanitizer or anything in the beginning. I know that there was a shortage of things, but it just felt like there weren't things put in place to make it safe for us. They were not limiting customers coming into the store. They were not saying that anyone had to wear any protective PPE masks or anything. You know, our front end cashiers didn't have to have barricades or anything like that. No social distancing was enforced. Management was not supporting us in terms of like ensuring social distancing and, you know, staying on the floor and making sure that we were protected by customers and everything else. And it just was a very scary, and I understand it's scary for, it can be scary for customers too, but for us, the essential workers who have no choice but to be there, and we're risking our lives and working these really long hours, and we're really tired, and not having all these things available to us, leaving us exposed to multiple exposures of the virus and the droplets is just such a dangerous thing. And it was a very uncertain and scary time for a lot of us. And as a steward, I've had so many people coming up to me constantly expressing their concerns, and also my own concerns and my family's concerns. So it was not a fun time, I'd say.
Is anybody even infected at your location?
At my location, there's probably been over 10 infections at my location, including myself. And it's very scary because we are just being exposed to this virus that we don't really know a lot of, and people are falling sick. And it's, you know, social distancing, even though now it's starting, I don't really know what's happening. I haven't been at work for almost 2 weeks now, but I feel like it's inevitable because the grocery stores are so small and you have so many people there, and because they're making such huge sales right now because everybody's hoarding groceries, they've been hiring lots of people. So you have all these people crammed into a location, and people are stressed out, not having PPE and in close proximity. So, I mean, I'm not a doctor or scientist, but I think I know how viruses work, and it doesn't sound like something that's good for people not to get sick. So, yeah.
You mentioned 10 people in your workplace were infected. If you don't mind me asking, how are they doing? Do you know?
I actually have no idea. They're not giving us information about things. So, I don't know. I'm curious if people are feeling as sick as me. We're not being things are not being communicated to us. People want to know why locations are still being like left open, and why things are business as usual, and why it feels like our lives are not important, and that you know, as grocery store workers, we've always been left to feel like we are the bottom line, and that ultimately our well-being isn't, you know, at the forefront of companies' goals. But it's never been more apparent than now during this pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, when we see how companies are reacting to things, I'm hearing a lot of good talk by a lot of different companies. We're going to look after our workers. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. I mean, when you guys had your first case, did they contact the rest of the people that were exposed around that person who fell ill? Did they say, like, you know, this area needs to be closed down, or the store needs to be closed down? Do we need to do a deep dive into cleaning?
So, as far as I know, deep dive cleaning for stores counts as closing for the night and bringing in a third party team and cleaning everything. The specific areas and departments definitely were not shut down. I guess they contacted the people they thought came in contact with that person. And, but I mean, the window between when they contacted that person, all those people, is quite large. So if one person was sick, those other people didn't go in isolation until maybe like 4 or 5 days later. And then all those people came in contact with other people.
Wow. Yeah, no, I'm hearing, I mean, it feels as though, you know, when the big grocery stores, like when it first happened, we heard from the big grocery stores saying, we're going to give a hazard pay incentive, a temporary hazard pay incentive of maybe $2 an hour. We're going to look after our employees. We're going to make sure our stores are safe. And I don't think, and I think they were doing so because, you know, they wanted to tell the public that it's safe for them to shop there. But, you know, your experiences speak different to that. Do you feel like they are prioritizing, you know, being good to customers over worker safety?
I definitely think that the first priority are their sales. The second priority is the customers, and then the third priority, actually, we're not any priority, to be honest. That's my feeling. It's very strange because even though we have so many cases, they've made it mandatory now for employees to wear masks, but not the customers, which shows to me like you just don't want us to be passing on germs, but you don't really care that customers are passing on the germs to us, you know. And you know, as for the $2, you know, my union has fought for that hazard pay, and they've made it so that it seems to be a standard now across Canada, so that we can get, you know, at the very minimum, and you know, they're even fighting for something greater than that, and it's it's the very least that they can do. And you're right, they want to make it look like it's safe, and if they downplay it, it'll still bring people in and allow people to shop. But we need people to really be considerate of our employees and how we're getting sick and how we're under so much stress, and not to mention the violence that we've had in multiple locations in different stores and banners in the city, and gun violence and things like that. And those are really important things to talk about during this pandemic in terms of our safety, you know.
Josie, I want to turn to you. How are you handling this? Like yourself, like you've tested positive, been off work for 10 weeks. Well, what have your last, you know, 2 weeks look like?
It's been horrible. It's you know, they say that it affects you differently depending on many things. I honestly believe that because I was exposed to it so many times and had so much exposure to the virus, maybe that's why I was affected so much by it. But it's like, it doesn't feel exactly like a flu. It feels like worse than a flu, and it's the symptoms keep changing, and it's been very difficult and painful and uncomfortable. And it's because I can't be near anyone. And I live on my own. It's been very discouraging. My union has been so incredible during this time, and every single person has like reached out to me, including my union president, whereas my work has not reached out to me. So you can see the difference right there and how one feels valued. So I feel definitely appreciated and supported by my union. I'm working at trying to stay well and keeping my lungs clear. But I also want to fight for my other workers who have to be at work right now, and their safety isn't being, you know, taken seriously. And so I think that just by how horrible I feel, I need to stand up for them right now.
So your thoughts, you're at home, offset with COVID-19, and your thoughts are, how do I protect my fellow coworkers?
Yes. Anyone who knows me know I'm a huge activist, so that's not very far fetched for me right now. I'm really angry. I'm very angry with how things have been, and I'm not like happy with things, and I don't want other people to keep getting sick when it could be prevented.
So if there's one, you know, I don't want to, if you were to give somebody advice on, you know, when you go into a grocery store next, other than, you know, wearing gloves or masks yourself, which I do every time I go into a grocery store. well, if we were to do one act of kindness towards a grocery store worker, and the next time you go to the grocery store, what do you think will be meaningful for people to hear?
I think as a customer going in, I think just pausing and having compassion and putting yourself in someone else's shoes is important, because I know they keep saying like we're heroes and all this stuff, and but it certainly doesn't feel that way. We're not being treated that way. We're still being treated quite miserably by still like a lot of customers, and definitely by our management. And so what I want to say is, I don't know why people have become so classist and why all this division has like come about. But I think that if we can put ourselves in other people's shoes and just have that compassion and go in and be kind and know that we're all like in this together and support each other, and that we don't have to look out for ourselves, we have to look out for each other and the collective, because we really need that if we're going to get through this or anything in the future. So I think that people need to come into stores more compassionately, more mindfully, and hopefully maybe that'll make a difference. And stay home. Stay home.
Josie, thank you so much for joining us. And I wish you all the best of luck in your health and your kind of quick, swift recovery. It's inspiring to hear, like you, when you're down, you're thinking about those you can pull up. So I really appreciate it, and I think you're doing amazing work as an activist, but also, you're a role model to many of us. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Wow. Thank you. So there's a lot to think about there. But the next person we're going to bring on is Gagandeep Kaur, who is a postal worker and is also the main organizer for the Warehouse Workers Center in Brampton. Thank you, Gagandeep. How are you? Welcome.
Yes, thanks a lot for inviting me here, Mohammed. And yeah, I'm good.
So, Gagandeep, I wanna, I asked that question of Josie about an act of kindness to a grocery worker, and when I thought about that, I was like, how could I thank somebody who's a warehouse worker? Because I can go into a grocery store worker and still say thank you, but I can't go to a warehouse worker and say thank you.
Because they're hiding behind. They are our hidden heroes.
So, yeah. But it's such an important thing that they're doing. When we originally thought about bringing somebody on from warehouses to this program, it was really difficult because most warehouses are not unionized, especially in Peel, and a lot of them are afraid of losing their jobs because and speaking out is really difficult. But when I saw the Warehouse Workers Center, which is advocating for warehouse workers to either to get more informed about their rights, to understand what's happening in their workplaces, and to push governments and companies to take their work more seriously, I was really inspired by the work that you've done. So tell me a little bit what are you doing at the Warehouse Workers Center, and what are some of the things that you're hearing people are handling during this crisis?
So at the Warehouse Worker Center, which was opened this year in January, first of all, I would like to give you a little bit insight into why we needed a Warehouse Worker Center Peel in this region. So this region, Peel region, has grown tremendously over this last decade. And a lot of companies have come in and they have brought in plenty of jobs. But the jobs that they have brought in, they are not secure, neither they are stable, they don't pay proper benefits, they are not something that a person can rely on for their whole lives. They try to have precarious job conditions. And the workers on the floor, they have no voice in any of those decision making. So the main reason for having a Warehouse Worker Center in Peel was to give those workers the voice that they can have to address their needs. So having that center there really supports the workers in the region that is full of warehouses. And I am myself a postal worker. I work in the warehouse. I totally understand the concerns and the issues that the warehouse workers face on the work floor. So, and going forward, taking forward that, ever since we took over the center, we have tried our best to educate the workers, because I believe education is the tool to empower the workforce. If they are educated, if they are aware of their rights, they know how to fight the employers back. So we hold weekly now, because of the crisis, we cannot really have in-class sessions, but we are holding the online webinars just like this one. Every week we pick up a relevant topic that and also invite lawyers to speak on our webinars so that we can educate the workers. And we are talking with workers from different warehouses. We try to assist them with all the issues. We have helped workers file their WSIB claims. We have helped them with any pay issues that they are having. We have addressed their needs. We have spoken to media about that. And right now we also, as a Warehouse Worker Center, we have organized a coalition of the essential workers, where we have invited representatives from various work sectors, organizations, and we hold bi-weekly meetings, and we talk and we plan how we can all come together and work collectively to address the needs of the essential workforce.
No, that's wonderful. I know that you guys had started a petition for Amazon workers. What were you seeing from that warehouse that you thought was deserving of starting a petition? And what was the petition about?
So, yeah, you must know that Amazon is one employer that has always been scrutinized over the labor practices, the way they have treated their workers. And with this pandemic, those concerns, those issues have just been amplified. So we heard from workers who are working in the field Amazon facilities. They approached us with their concerns and issues, and we decided to give them that voice. We did that petition for them, which really was shared all along the social medias. We received a lot of support from the members, from the workers, and we sent those to the management, but so far we haven't received any response from the management. But we already see on the facilities, the workers have told us that after that petition was launched, some changes were brought in, some positive changes that helped, but the issues, they still remain.
So I understand from like the Amazon experience, Amazon has a rate system where they rate different employees based on time that they're on the floor, time that they're off the floor. What do you hear? What are some of the stories that you're hearing from people that approached you that you could share?
Yeah, sure. So Amazon, what they have is it's a point system that penalizes employees for lateness, absences, or other reasons. So if someone acquires like 6 points in a short period of time, the employee is first asked for the explanation, or sometimes they are just terminated. But what happened from mid-March to the end of April, they suspended that point system to give workers some flexibility, right? So that they can attend to their other personal needs. People had childcare issues. But now, as of this month, that system is back. And now, if they are not feeling well and they decide not to go to work because workers don't want to make others sick, not only they are staying home unpaid, but they will be pointed. And their system, it's the term that they use is called TOT, or time off task. It is just another, a standard by which they measure the productivity of the employees. So TOT, time off task, means when a worker is not scanning items, right? Or anytime a worker is,
going to the
taking, it's time off task.
So when you go to the washroom, is that time off task?
So yes, when you are going to the washroom, that is added to your time off task. If you are just waiting in an aisle because there are other people around and you want to maintain that safe physical distance. You don't want to crisscross each other's path. The time that you wait, that will add to your TOT, time
How many
off
people are
task.
working at these facilities?
Sorry?
How many people work at these facilities?
So the facilities that we are talking about, they employ hundreds to thousands of people. And now with the, because everyone is home, they are at least trying to stay home, a lot of people are relying on the online services. So a lot of the people, they are ordering, and that rise in the orders is further leading to, for companies like Amazon to hire more workers. More workers in any facility further makes it challenging to keep that safe social distance, So everything is kind of like playing against their safety protocols. And I've heard from the workers that the safety standards such as social distancing, they are only applicable at the entrances. As soon as you enter inside the facilities, it's a total different world where there's no such thing as social distancing, because the workers are pushed to meet their productivity standards, and therefore they don't have time to clean their stations like the way they probably want to do it. They don't have time to wait, not to crisscross each other's path, because they are pushed to process the orders. They don't have time to go to even bathroom, because apparently the bathroom in these huge facilities, they have like on the ground floor, and a person could be working on the fourth floor. And workers have told us that it is like a 10-minute walk to the washroom, not adding the time, inside the washroom. So 5 minutes to walk there, 5 minutes to come back. So that all adds to their time of task, for which they can be penalized. They have been given verbal and written warnings, and in the end, they could be terminated. And then the workers have on their scanners, they can, if they know each other's badge number, they can easily check the time, time of task or the rate for the other employees. So which really, they are putting people in that environment where they are like pushing themselves physically to perform, to maintain that safety standards. And I believe the physical stress can be manageable maybe after some time, but the issue of the mental stress that causes on the workers, I believe that is a bigger problem.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like, even when we were talking to Josie, you could tell that the company is like ensuring that the supply chain is moving is the number one priority for companies. And, the customer comes second, and then number three is the employees. And when I was thinking about Amazon, they have these massive facilities, which they've built for, I would not know how many number of employees. But when I heard them saying they were gonna hire 50,000 or 20,000 more employees, or 75,000 employees across North America, I was thinking, how are they going to maintain social distance within these facilities? And especially because Amazon has a record of being really quite terrible, to be honest, on worker safety. Last year we brought, I think, 5 workers who were from an Amazon facility in New York, where there had been a number of deaths in Long Island, and they were talking about the difficulty that they were facing over there. So when I thought that this was happening over here, that it seems like a recipe for disaster. What are some of the things that you're hearing from people? Are there any stories that you want to share with us about what people are actually finding on the floor?
So just yesterday, I was talking to a worker, and she was saying that now, since that point system is back, the day that she's not feeling well, it's not that she will be just staying home unpaid. The other thing is that that she doesn't want to go to work to make others sick, but staying at home, not getting paid, and on top, she will be getting points for that absence, right? So how do you justify that, right? Like, what kind of work environment we are creating? So I asked her, so how does she feel about all this? She said that her anxiety levels are high. She is feeling scared. She is worried that she doesn't want to make her family sick, the community sick, the other workers on the work floor sick, but she does not really have much choice because she also has to pay the bills. So now the workers are stuck between choosing, making the choice of looking at their well-being or, how they have to pay the bills, right? So these are the situations. And then the other workers that have talked with us, they said that, the washroom issue, the facilities where they work, some of them are mechanized. So machines, they generate heat. The facilities are hot. So they need to drink water to keep themselves hydrated, and they are walking all day. And one person told me that on average, they are walking like 20 to 30 kilometers inside the facility, right? They have noted on their Fitbits or whatever, you can track that. So that, and then if they drink water, they have to go washroom. But to go to washroom, that means they would be adding that time to their time of task,
So
for
are they
which they
avoiding
could be
drinking
penalized.
water?
Yes. No, it's not that they don't let you drink water. It's just that if you drink water, you will have to go to washroom, right? So just to avoid that, they say, you know what, sometimes all day, I try not to drink any water.
Wow.
So these are like some of the horrible, horrible stories that workers have told us, what kind of pressure, that they experience while they are working. And not to mention that, these are the workers who are playing an important role in fulfilling the needs of the rest of society at this moment. They are trying their best to be there for the workers for the other people who could be vulnerable to this illness, who are at high risk. So they are playing an integral role to keep the things rolling, but they are putting themselves at risk. And all they get is this false praise that they are our heroes, right? They should have the working conditions or at least the wages that should reflect that. But I don't believe that, the working conditions they are in is a true reflection of what they go through on day-by-day basis. So I think, a company, especially like Amazon, who has made so much profit even during this pandemic, should be held responsible, and they should work to improve these workers' conditions and not put, productivity measures over the safety of these workers.
So just a quick question, and then we're going to have to wrap it up relatively quickly. But so if you're trying to clean off your own station, is that time off task?
Yes. They don't give you any extra time at the beginning of the shift or at the end of the shift to do any thorough cleanup of your workstation. So if you decide to do that, because yes, of course, you don't want to get sick or you don't want to contribute to the spread of the virus, you will be doing at the risk of, of your own, you could be disciplined after. Yeah.
Gagandeep, keep it up. We really appreciate all the work that you're doing out there. And, it's going to be a difficult environment to be working in, because there's a lot of people in warehouse work that, I worked in warehouses many years ago, and I remember I was 18 years old, and they gave me they told me to label all the different shelves, and they put me on a skyjack without any harness or any of that stuff, and there I was going up and down on a skyjack without any type of safety. So the work is always going to be difficult. It's always going to be a bit risky, but I just want to say that, people to realize that when we sit and, order stuff online, there is a person who will be processing that order. There is a person who will be packing your order, and there is a person who will be delivering it to your doorstep. So when I understand everyone wants to order stuff, but just be considerate of the work that they are doing, that they are risking their life for that. So whatever we are ordering, maybe it's about time to make those decisions wisely. Thank you very much, Gagandeep. I really appreciate it. And keep up the good work.
Thank you, Mohammed.
So the next person we're going to have is Ivan Ostos. Ivan is a food delivery courier. and he was one of the main organizers for the Foodsters United campaign. After Ivan, we're going to bring in the three leaders from their union. So we're going to bring in Qaiser Maroof, who's from the CUPW Toronto, Liisa Schofield, also from CUPW National, as well as Glacier Samuel, who is from UFCW 1006A, to talk about all the different political contexts around what work is looking like. So that's going to be after Ivan. So, but Ivan, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So you're out there every day delivering food. What is it like?
The funny thing is, as a cyclist, I'll be outside and I'm like, oh, it's so nice. There's less traffic. I'm less worried about getting hit. But then the other risks are obviously more apparent. A lot of these condos don't really enforce any sort of policy on food delivery. And mind you, a lot of the people ordering food are condos in Toronto. It's probably like 95% of the business. It's not people ordering to their houses. That would be much easier to do no contact delivery. But in these condos, they still expect you plenty of times. I would say 2/3 of the time, they still expect you to go right up to the condo. So you gotta, go talk to security, convince them to let you up, go through the elevator, you're on the floor, you go knock on the door. And the safe way to do it would be to leave the package there, walk away, make sure that they open and receive it, and then move on. But, this just doesn't need to happen. There's no reason this has to happen. There's plenty of places where they have a policy where you leave it downstairs. So that way you are not transferring any of the potential for this virus throughout the condo. And the problem is, frankly, a lot of customers are upset about it. They want that convenience. That's what they're paying for. So what's effectively happening is the service is it's about more than just getting your food delivered. It's about you paying to not take the risk to contract this virus. You are paying me under Uber Eats or Foodora formerly to take that risk, which is, I don't know, knowing that, it just seems so disgusting to me.
So we were talking to Josie as well as Gagandeep, and we've seen different employers say, this is a moment when hazard pay is necessary. So grocery workers have been giving a bit of a boost, as well as Amazon workers. We've got a little bit of a boost. Have you seen anything for food delivery couriers?
Nothing. And the way the gig economy is set up for couriers, I don't think it's never going to happen the way it is right now, because it's all supply and demand. It's pure market, supply and demand. So here's how it works for anyone who doesn't know what it's like being an Uber Eats courier on my end as the courier. The app is effectively a video game. I get an order, it pings, and it has multipliers, it has additions, it has all this stuff to incentivize me to keep working, and to it's like, okay, this order you're going to get X dollars more, or it's going to be times X dollars, and that is as good as hazard pay gets, because normally that functions for Uber as a way to get more workers when they need it and get less when they don't. So, in the middle of wintertime, when less people want to work, typically the multipliers would be higher. In the middle of summer, when a lot of people want to go out, it's lower. Now with this pandemic, normally springtime is when we all realize that, it's going to be rough out there, because Canadians like to go out, go on the patio, they stop ordering food so much. Because of the pandemic, it has somewhat. Sorry?
Are you making more?
Making more, I would say, about the same. It's definitely like, the thing is, this business has kind of been going down. This past winter I worked was probably the worst winter I've ever worked. And normally we kind of depend on that winter income. Now with this springtime, with the pandemic, it's like better than I suppose it would have been, but it's honestly, people still don't tip. The multiplier that Uber has been giving us is not super high. So there's potential to make money, but like, at what risk, right? Like at what point is it like, oh, well, the boost is good, so I'm gonna put no, I don't know, man.
So I got a question for you. So what happens if you either get sick or you get injured while riding your bike? You know, what happens then?
You know, I saw all of the food delivery company statements about COVID, Foodora, Uber, DoorDash, Skip, and they all kind of came out with the same bullshit plan. And the plan was basically like, if you get sick, we'll compensate you based off your income that you made from this app. The thing is, firstly, you got to get sick, which I think is like a big red flag. How about trying to prevent people from getting sick? How about offering PPE for those workers, you know? How about, you know, some actual guidelines for how to do this? How about enforcing the condos do no contact delivery? It's still an option for people. It's just an option. And a reasonable person would take that option, but it's still an option. So a lot of people are going to just ask for the full service. So this contribution, the second thing is that, you know, the Canadian government's offering you $2,000 a month to not work. So unless you're gonna be making more than that as a gig worker, you would obviously just take CERB, because CERB is gonna pay you more unless you cannot take CERB. And there's a lot of couriers who cannot get CERB because they don't have valid SIN numbers, or, you know, if they made less than $5,000 last year, or now with Foodora closing its operations in Canada, we're all wondering, does this count as a COVID-19 related thing? Because the CERB is supposed to be for COVID-19 related things, but Foodora is leaving because they went bankrupt. So that's effectively screwing all of us from knowing that we can get CERB. So to finish that point, basically, they just made that statement to look good. All of them made that statement to look good. The reality is, a courier who does the math, quick math, is going to know that the CERB is better if they can get it. So, and if it's not, they have to they have to already get the virus to get that income from these companies. And mind you, when Foodora was still responding to emails to their couriers wrote in saying like, okay, I talked to a health professional, they say I got to, you know, not work. They didn't reply. So I think honestly, it's all bogus. They want to look good. They want to do the least they possibly can to benefit the workers. And that's just built into their business structure. It's built into the gig economy. It's built into the fact we're not employees. They don't have to do anything. They're not obligated to. So why would they?
I'm gonna turn to talk about Foodora for a few minutes, because, you know, the decision that came, I think it was last week, where Foodora said they're gonna pack up and leave Canada because of a bankruptcy. But then the day after that, Delivery Hero, their parent company, declared massive amounts of profits. It felt like a stab, because you know, like, the government has deemed you as an essential worker. You're putting yourself out there. And then here's a company who, just because you guys got a labor board ruling that said they need to deem you as an employee and give you, give you access to WSIB and, again, allow you to unionize, they decided as a gig economy employer, they got to pack up and just leave town versus, continue to provide the essential service that you guys were providing. I felt that, what was glaringly obvious to me, which was super annoying as well, which was that, I was barely hearing any politicians to say, hold on a second, these are essential workers. Why are we not protecting them? Where, these are people that are putting themselves out there. Why are we not creating rules around this stuff? And when we talk about the gig economy, what you guys were doing was really at the forefront. Tell me about what that organizing drive looked like for you a little bit, and at the end, how did you take it when they left?
Man, like the organizing drive for me was huge because it wasn't always it was never truly about let's get a certified union. Yes, it was, because that was obviously the goal. But what the big, concrete, timeless goal is let's get rights and protections and respect for the people of the gig economy in Canada. Let's get Foodora couriers the right and respect that they deserve. And that's not going to change. So, Foodora is gone May 11th. And frankly, their head's been cut off like a month. They haven't been operating, doing anything as far as I could tell. So, I cried. Like I'm not ashamed to say it. I cried for like 4 days straight. Because it meant that a lot of the work that we all put into this, and this is not just me, right? Like there's a dozen of us who like really sweat and grind. All the couriers, put in work, voting or, volunteering to phone each other and distribute PPE, which we did ourselves, not Foodora. That was heartbreaking, straight up, because it may have signaled to people that, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that you tried really hard. It doesn't matter that you made something beautiful, because at the end of the day, they still have all the power, and all they got to do is flip the switch and they're out. But that's not true, because we have created something. This is a community, and just because they're gone doesn't mean we're gone. I'm still here. I still need to make a living, and it's not going to be Foodora anymore. It's going to be Uber Eats. It's going to be the other apps, but like, the struggle is the same. The issues that Foodora have all transfer over to the other apps, one and the same. They all function the same. They all function on tons of investment from venture capitalists to sustain their business model. And they all want to save as much money as possible. So yeah,
Ivan,
sorry.
I was talking to our president, John Cartwright, the day after that decision came forward, and he said something that I thought was important to share with you. He said, back in the 1920s and 30s, there were a number of organizing drives that failed, and many hearts were broken because there's so much time and energy, and I'm sure as an organizer, you yourself put an enormous amount of love into creating a community, into creating a union, and when it didn't work, then it wasn't a moment of pause. It was a moment of acceleration, because the people like yourself who fought and lost knew how to win as well, and they became the labor leaders of the future. And when I look at the gig economy and I see how companies are reacting to the gig economy and allowing to, and how governments are currently allowing the gig economy employers to take advantage and not provide employment standards, and I see your fight. I remember a number of times I was at the labor board with you when they were discussing this. And I felt inspired because you guys are really at the vanguard of this movement, and I just want to say that what you started there with many of your colleagues is not going to end there. I can definitely be sure of that, and I know that I hope that you stay committed to building communities and to building unions, because we're going to need you if we're going to tackle this gig economy.
Yeah, 100%. Like we all these companies are on edge now. Like Uber's on edge because they know we exist and they know I'm not going anywhere. It's no coincidence that when I started talking about, I had a workplace injury, a pretty serious one. I broke my arm. So I have a big ass scar here with the metal in here from Foodora. Now, the Foodora was the only company of the 4 apps in Toronto that offered WSIB. Mind you, that's not because they wanted to. It's because they bought a Toronto company called Courier that they had WSIB, and it was kind of a tough sell to get rid of that. You know, they weren't just super generous, but they did have it. So when I got WSIB and I talked about how it doesn't work because WSIB wasn't built for the gig economy. So the income I had was it wasn't being calculated correctly. So I basically, you know, I got very little money and I was off for 4.5 months. So it was really stressful. And I started talking about that, and they started, you know, getting the fire under them, as well as the other apps who didn't offer anything. You know, Uber guys who had been hit by cars, nothing. 2 months later, Uber announces that it's offering this basic insurance thing for its riders, which, mind you, is not great. It's basically like if you have a lifelong injury and you die, you get $20,000, which is not great, but it's something. And they did that because of the pressure, because they knew that people are starting to look at how they treat the workers now. And that's just going to keep happening. Whether there's a union involved, whether it's workers starting their own apps, their own stuff, their own co-op, whether it's us talking to Doug Ford, whether it's us fighting with Doug Ford, Bill Morneau, Justin Trudeau, this isn't over.
Thank you very much, Ivan. I wish you all the best of luck. And I know that, you know, this journey is just the beginning. So don't feel like, I know you cried a lot, but know that there's a lot of us that are behind you and that we're going to be working on this for a long time. And we're going to win. And
that's for sure.
Thank you, brother. The next, we're going to bring Liisa Schofield, Glacier Samuel, and Qaiser Maroof. Thank you, Ivan. Justice for Foodora couriers. All right. Okay, I think we're live now. So Liisa, Qaiser, Glacier, welcome.
Hi.
Hello.
That was quite something to talk to those folks. You know, I'm gonna start with Ivan and with Gagandeep a little bit. So Qaiser and Liisa, jump in first. You know, the gig economy is evolving. Yeah, the fight that you won at the labor board meant a lot.
Yeah.
What did it change, and what still needs to be changed? And talk about the decision a little bit.
Yeah. So in February, we won, you know, first in going to the labor board and the unionization process for Foodora couriers. We had to first win a reclassification, essentially, because all couriers, all gig economy workers, all gig employers use this loophole of misclassifying workers as independent contractors. You're be your own boss. You're self-employed. It's this big draw out there in the world, which is now, you know, the mask is being torn off of that, as really it's just a ploy by employers to use the loophole to not have to give any basic workers protections, any basic workers rights. So we fought a big battle at the labor board around the classification of couriers, or the classification of Foodora couriers. And we got a historic decision on February 25th, winning the right for couriers to be classified as dependent contractors, which is essentially under the law to be classified as employees, and thus giving them the right to unionize. And that's the first case of this kind of gig workers getting that sort of decision in Canada. I'm pretty sure, you know, it's a big case for all of North America. And so it's huge. It opens the door for so many other pieces of organizing. You know, the Uber Black drivers with UFCW put in their application not long after us. And so all of those pieces are working together to ensure that, as Ivan said, you know, one employer after the next is going to continue to be challenged. And there's been a spark happening around the world, not just in Toronto, but around the world, gig workers who are rising up and who are demanding better and who are fighting in one form or another. And this was one piece of that huge puzzle around the world. And I'm really proud of the workers who stood up and have been part of that and will continue to do so. And I know that the piece that we won at the Labor Board, I can see it being used now to push legislation, because, you know, ultimately I think we need to push the provinces to bring in legislation, because one of the things we lost under Doug Ford was the rollback of some basic protections that were there under Bill 148, you know, around trying to protect against this plague of misclassification. And of course, Doug Ford rolled back that to put the onus on employers to prove that someone is an independent contractor. And of course, Doug Ford removed that. So we have to fight to bring that back, and we have to fight for even better legislation. And we're seeing people do that in California and elsewhere. I think we take that and we take that win and we push for broad systemic change to protect all gig workers.
Okay, sir, I'm going to come to you. CUPW has been supporting this fight. Welcome, first and foremost, and congratulations on your new election.
So kind. Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to participate. Yes, we are totally in support of the Fedora workers, and actually every worker to be in a nutshell. And talking about the gig economy and the gig economy workers, this COVID actually exposed the imperialist system and the minute workers, basically, who's just living day by day, project by project, one by one, like day in, day out. Like, you know, that 1% of the Canada is controlled by 99% wealth is controlled by 1%, and that's not acceptable.
Yeah. So I mean, you're the president of CUPW Toronto. You represent a number of people working in warehouses. How are you finding that your membership is handling COVID-19? Like, is there enough PPE? What are some of the stories that you're hearing from people?
Oh, yes. Actually, I have experienced the firsthand, because I took office as of April 1st, and the April 2nd, the very next day, I received a phone call of a positive case back out of one of the biggest postal processing plant in the country, which is Gateway processing plant. It's situated in Mississauga, Ontario. Yes, we have a positive case, and the postal workers, I'm very proud, believe me or not, I'm so proud. I was a carrier for 17 years, but I'm very proud that postal workers, we are working hard, and we are in the front line delivering mail, and also abiding by the law that, you know, that stay home. So COVID can be, controlled a bit, because we are the letter carriers, the drivers, everybody who is moving mail, and frontline letter carriers, they're delivering their mail to the customer's doorstep. So, you know, the pandemic could be at somewhat control. But in a nutshell, we are the one who's exposed to it big time.
Yeah.
Right? In a sense, like we are being called essential workers, but do we have essential products to protect our workers? And CUPW, make no mistakes, we always, I make it very clear to the employer, Canada Post, that we hold union holds the Canada Post accountable to provide a proper protective equipment for our workers, like masks, gloves, proper sanitization. And to me, like, our workers are showing up to work every single day. You know, that's a bravery. That's a huge bravery, knowing the fact that we do not have proper PPE. And to be very honest, every single week I talk with Canada Post, and we have the meeting, and they're having excuses that, oh, we do not have the proper masks or proper protective equipment. And my answer to them is very straightforward. Then excuse, you do not have supplies, that is not going to be excused, and I'm not going to let you compromise with the health and safety of our members. In this pandemic crisis, they're so brave to go out and serve the Canadians.
Thank you, Qaiser. Yeah, no, I agree. PPE is absolutely fundamentally important. I know that even within the Amazon facility, they didn't have enough in the beginning, and then afterwards, after a number of people advocated for that, then the company started, responding to that. Glacier, I'm going to bring it to you. I know there's been a number of people within UFCW's membership who have been affected by this. And I believe you have lost 2 members to COVID-19 so far. What is the union doing to push back against that? And what are some of the strategies that you guys are employing?
Yeah, so we've lost an employee in a Durham store who was management, and then we lost a cashier in one of our Mississauga superstores. So it's very unfortunate. And just like Josie, spoke earlier, and we have a lot of members who have, tested positive for COVID. What we're doing on the union side of things is we are pushing the company to implement as many safety precautions as possible. Within our local, which is 1006A, we have approximately 25,000 grocery workers. And that's within the stores as well as in the warehouses, right? And they're all deemed essential workers. In the beginning of all of this, it was chaotic, and there were not any clear-cut safety precautions in place. But I would say now we've pushed the employer through our own lobbying with them, and as well as through government. The $2 pay premium we were instrumental in getting Loblaws to agree to that for the workers who are going to work. The cashier shields around the cash registers, right? Our stores were one of the first ones who actually had that implemented, and we pushed for that as well. Masks and gloves. Initially, even now, Health Canada doesn't say that you have to wear a mask and that it's necessary. They say it's recommended, but it's not mandated, right? And we also have been pushing the employers to make sure that our members can wear masks, can wear gloves. One of the key factors in, I think, helping to eliminate the spread of this and preventing people from getting sicker or passing on is the limiting of customers in the stores. And that's major, right? Gagandeep spoke earlier about in the warehouse, it's a little bit difficult to do that once they get in. And in the stores, it's difficult to social distance when you have too many people in the stores, right? And so we've been pushing for that. And most of the stores that we represent, they're pretty good with it. Here and there you have a few, but the employers that we deal with have been following a lot of our recommended guidelines.
I'm gonna open it up to questions relatively soon. So if anybody from the attendees has any questions for any of the panelists, please put them in the chat function, and that will allow us to see that. Oh, there's a Q&A function too that I have apologetically ignored. I'm still learning how to do it. So I'm gonna start with activity which is related to digital. Oh, there's one that's gone already. Never mind. I want to actually I want to go back to the grocery stores for 1 second. I'm gonna come back to that. What I found really disturbing from Josie and from everybody really was that how the number one priority is the acceleration of the supply chain, and that seems to be, and that is a direct result that directly results in profits.
Mm-hmm.
So when they say they want to accelerate the social distancing, will slow that. Gloves and sanitation will slow that. Anything that reduces the speed of customers coming in and out. How difficult has it been to enforce social distancing at stores, and what are some of the ramifications of that poorly being done that you've seen?
So in the stores, they're limiting the number, right? Which helps with that. The issue with the social distancing, the difficulty is when customers are shopping in and out of the aisles, right? And their staff either putting out product or doing whatever they do. The cashier stations are one aspect of it, and they can control the flow of traffic as to what lane you're going to, and then the cashiers have their shields around the registers. It's in and out of the other part of the stores that creates a problem. So if a clerk is, putting out a can of beans and the customer is coming up the aisle and wants those beans, it makes it difficult for people to stop and wait and keep that 2-meter distance. And so one of the things that we are asking the employer to do is to have scheduled times during the day as to when they will stock product back up on the shelf, because you're not protecting everybody in the same way, right? Because everybody's job is a little bit different. But we do push back when we hear of any employers who are not following protocol or who are not taking this seriously. We'll get in contact with the higher aboves in the company and address it. Reps will go in and address it as need be. But we handle it as we go on. But that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm going to open the first question to Caitlin Hewitt-White, who asks, what is the labor movement doing to support grocery workers? What can fellow workers do to support them? How can we convince the employers to ask customers to wear masks and or put hand washing stations at the front of stores? How can we increase PPE use for workers?
Companies respond to pressure, customer pressure. We, on our side, we're doing what we can in terms of lobbying government and contacting certain officials in the government and voicing our concerns. We've already done that and sent out what we're requesting the government to do in order to protect grocery workers. But we're also asking affiliates that from the OFL and other organizations too, on our behalf, contact government, email these employers, these grocery employers, Loblaws, put pressure on them. If you go into a store and then you see that certain things are not happening, talk to the management, send the company an email. That's the way that they'll change, is they respond to customers first and foremost. It's unfortunate, but just like what was mentioned earlier, the employees tend to be third on the list of concerns, and customers, they listen to them.
There's a bunch of questions around the gig economy that I'll open up to both Liisa or to Qaiser. And one of it was, I'm just trying to pull it up right now. It feels like, as the gig economy is starting to ramp up, where companies are now, there's a digital application to work. So companies are saying, you can either work from home or you can work independently. I feel that there's going to be a massive, coming out of this pandemic, there's going to be a massive thrust towards creating or expanding the gig economy, because now it's become more obvious that working from home is a possibility. what are some of the risks that you see coming up, and what are some of the strategies you think that we should be thinking about moving forward?
So,
Liisa, do you want to take that? Oh, Spencer, you want to take that? Sure.
I'll let Qaiser. Qaiser, do you want to go first, or do you want?
Okay, you can go. It's okay. You're the first one there. It's okay.
Go ahead, Liisa.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and I think that I think in general, coming out of this crisis, there's going to be we've seen sort of a reckoning of what is the treatment, what is happening for workers who previously have not had the kind of treatment that they deserve. A lot of undervaluing of low wage workers in the services sector, and so it's going to be a reckoning all around. And for us as labor, I feel like it's going to be has to put a real fire under our butts to make sure that we're there to respond, right? And that as employers are trying to use these loopholes around independent contractors, or find these ways to move around and get around labor standards, we have to be there to call it out and to organize it and to push for the broader systemic change that doesn't let employers get away with that, and I hope that coming out of this, we're ready to organize on the level that we need to be organizing. I would just throw it to Ivan. I'm sure he's got comments on it too. He said in the chat.
Okay, well, let me bring in Qaiser first, and then Skylar, if you can let Ivan back in, and then.
So with the gig economy, the problem we are disconnecting the physical touch of labor, and the other part is a big part of the security and confidentiality, because with the digital era, you can have all the apps, you can have all the tools to communicate or order, but it's not the delivery portion has to be physical. It's not like still the drone is delivering the food or anything you order. Somebody physically has to this contracting or the gig where somebody has to deliver it. Like they've got to have a physical touch of labor, and that's where we are losing big money, and workers are the undervalued. Basically, they're not being not even bare minimum. Like if you see all the apps like with the Uber and everywhere, they're giving you, or Food Dish, they're giving you coupons and all those things. Fine, you can order. But fact is, who is the one who is delivering? Is it the drone who is delivering, or a person with a bike or walking or any other method they're delivering? So what kind of benefit they're getting it? Next to nothing, believe me, next to nothing. And that's wrong. That's a huge wrong thing to do.
Ivan, you wanted to jump in on this one?
Yeah, 100%. So, listen, I got a story for y'all because I think people need to visualize this. A couple weeks ago, I want to sell my bike clock. So I put it on an app called Let Go. Guys like, okay, yeah, I'll come by, we'll do it, no contact, whatever. So I leave it, and the guy messaged me, and he's starting to say, like, okay, how do I work this? He's asking a lot of questions. It's clear he doesn't really know how the bike clock works. So I just start talking to him from like a few feet away, obviously, and he's explaining like he's an Uber Eats courier, and he just started 3 days ago and whatever. And he says, this is awesome. I love it. I can do whenever I want. I'm making so much money doing this. And I'm like, yeah, but dude, you're working in the middle of a pandemic. Like, that's kind of a bad deal. Like you think it's good now, but like I've been doing this for 4 years. And it's not always good, let me tell you. And that right there is not changing, because we have to understand there is an appeal to workers, certain demographics in our society, of the gig economy. There's a reason why people like getting their own shifts whenever they want, being their own boss. Because there's a sector in our society that is being underserved. And even if I tell this person, like, okay, but wouldn't you rather that Uber, you know, you get a consistently good wage doing Uber and you could do it consistently, and that would be a better standard of living for you overall. Even if that was the case, they would still say no, because the current structures in place, that's a huge change. The way the gig economy works right now, they need every single app. They need every single platform to make it all work. So each one needs to take a piece. So what I'm saying right now is we need to fight that structural change. We need to understand that the Canadian economy is based off migrant labor that is cheap, that these companies, you know, Canadians, quote unquote, don't want to do, you know, and that, as long as it works like that, Uber's going to need workers coming in from Ethiopia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, students, refugees, and those people, they're going to look at those jobs and it's going to work for them. It does. I know it does, because they're the ones who complain about it the least. All right. And they're the ones getting the most taken advantage of. So that's the thing. Like, that's a big question, but I think we need to talk about it, because that needs to change. Otherwise, these gig apps, they're always going to have a bit of leverage.
Absolutely. I'm going to start wrapping it up, because I think that, you know, we're almost at time now. But, you know, what's really been exposed today is, you know, when we think about the gig economy and the supply chain, and maybe if we can turn on the cameras for Gagandeep and Josie as well, that would be appreciated. You know, I think that when I think about these things, you know, this pandemic, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said, you know, my company has never embraced technology until this pandemic, because now everybody has to either, you know, and he works in an accounting firm. He's like, everybody's working from home. We've sent everybody laptops. So I said, you know, what is it going to look like afterwards? And he said, well, to be honest, like, I don't think we would pay for as much physical space as we probably are right now. And then I said, well, okay, so if you're not going to see them, do you feel like that's an opportunity for you to change your work relationship with them? And he said, well, you know, if I don't see them that much, maybe I would, like, the possibility of them working on other projects for other people is probably more so as well. So maybe I don't need to hire them for 40 hours. Maybe I can hire them for 30 hours as an independent consultant and let them work from home, and they can have their own laptop, and I don't have to do any of that while the work still gets done. But now I've already kind of proven that somebody can work from home pretty well. And what that sparked a conversation for me was that to say, that's what he was thinking in terms of what the future of work looks like for an accounting firm, then many other companies will start reimagining their work, their relationships. And what that means is that it's probably a significant jump in how people are treated as independent contractors versus employees. And as we've seen from the conversation with the gig economy, that it's not, that is being done to take advantage of. And that is being done to make sure that the wage is kept as low as possible, for people to not complain for the difficulties that they've had, and to make the greatest amount of profits for the companies that that are employing them. And I think that that's a real risk that we as labor need to tackle head on, and to make sure that we talk about it with governments as well. And the second thing I'll say is, you know, it's really shocking. And, like, you know, when especially like Josie, when you were speaking, it really affected me deeply, because, like, you know, you have COVID-19, like, you're recovering from it. But I mean, that's like it's how could a workplace allow like that to have happen, and not take it seriously? And what that really says is that people are prioritizing, companies are prioritizing the acceleration of the supply chain, which means more dollars, then their customers, and then their workers. And that's and that's, I don't think a more glaring example of that exists than, you know, the High River plant organized by UFCW 401, where the president of the plant recently, he wrote this quote. His name is Thomas Hess, and he said, you know, food workers are afraid to go to work in the current environment. They lack the economic security they need to recover, and they are terrified of bringing this illness to their families and communities. While they try to recover, their employer and government are telling them to get back to work. This recklessly endangers their lives and puts the risks of their bosses, puts the interests of their bosses first. And I think that really summarizes the approach that we're seeing from capital and from governments. That's a facility that, of the 2,000 employees, 921 as of 2 days ago had tested positive to COVID-19. And I think that, you know, as we go forward, I'm really encouraged by the strength and bravery by all of you in doing that you're doing. And, you know, I just wanted to extend my hand to say thank you for everything that you're doing. You're doing incredibly essential work. And we don't get to say that often enough. But thank you very much for joining us. And thank you for doing what you're doing. And know for sure that the Toronto York Regional Labor Council is here to support you in every fight that you're with. Thank you very much, everybody. And thank you for joining us on this webinar.